Hey, what's going on, everyone? Check out what's coming up this week on Legacies. Try Jet Dry. Fuck.
Yeah. This fantastical new washing machine will save you hours.
Washing machine? What's a washing machine?
I was looking at the wait list. I'm like, no, we got to make room for this individual right now, right?
Yeah.
So,
man, I'm feeling like I'm standing outside a bar with a velvet rope. You, Night at the Roxbury, you too? You on the list?
They get to that bottom part of the funnel. They're about to purchase. And all it takes is the budtender to say, don't buy this, buy that.
The power, the wielding power of a budtender.
The power.
Like, seriously. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Legacies. I'm your host, Tom Ritchie, joined by my incredible partner, Mr. Wesley Bowles. How you doing, Wes?
Good, you?
Awesome. And a reminder to everyone that Legacies is powered by Breadstack. Retailers, if your e-com game is sucking, it might be time for an upgrade. Hit up Breadstack. How's that? Is that one getting better? Is it...
Great.
Okay.
We're getting it. We're getting it.
How you doing today, my friend?
Pretty good. We're going to be old men again and bring up the weather, but I'm loving the cooler weather. Loving it. Loving it.
You're gonna get mad because I'm fucking with my mic again. I can't wait till I don't have to move it anymore. It's hit and miss. I love the cooler weather at night. It's nice. I do feel. I saw a clip the other day somewhere. It was a reel or something. They're like, you're getting. Oh no, it wasn't a clip. It's a commercial for a mortgage company, I think it is, and it's where this gentleman is a counselor or something, teaching younger generations not to be like their parents. Fuck, I wish I could remember what commercial or brand it was for. Have you ever seen those? It'd be like they're in a grocery store and they're like, they're like 30-year-olds and they're like, $21 for steak. Well, that's ridiculous. I think I have a coupon. And the guy walks up and he's like, nope, put your coupon, right? And it's all these different, I'll have to send you links. It's brilliant advertising. I fucking love it.
No, unfortunately, the only commercials I seem to remember are the ones where it's like injured in a car, call us to get you out of it, kind of thing. Like the lawyer commercials. Like
I love the mayhem ones. Have you ever seen those?
Which ones?
The insurance. I forget which insurance company it's for, but there's a dude that his character is mayhem.
Oh, yeah.
Like
that's progressive. That's
progressive. That's it. Yeah, they're solid too. I like.
Also, can't beat the old Allstate ones with what's his face. Damn, I can't remember his name, but he's got this deep, sultry voice.
I know who you're talking about.
It's not Denzel Washington. It's
Morgan Freeman.
No, it's not Morgan Freeman either. No.
Oh, geez, I'm not sure then.
Alan, is it Alan something? Damn.
I don't
know. His
Yeah.
voice is fantastic.
My brain is cloudy. I'm on muscle relaxers. Just sitting here zoning out. Hold on, I can't do that. We got a show. Oh, okay.
Sorry, Dennis Haver. That's the one.
Yeah, him and Sam Elliott, these guys with these fucking beautiful voices. Gary with the podcast has an incredible fucking voice. We need to get him to do some voiceover, maybe get him on the podcast.
Yeah, God. His voice is next level radio.
Oh my God. I wonder if he comes from that, because I do know individuals that worked radio that spent years conditioning, understanding how they should speak and when to raise and lower their voices and grab the audience's attention. Sorry, folks. I'm just rolling with it. This is what you get.
I miss like old school 30s and 40s radios where their voices were really animated.
Yeah. Are you looking for a soap? Try Jet Dry. Fuck.
This fantastical new washing machine will save you hours.
Washing machine? What's a washing machine? Oh my God. Oh fuck. Listen, there's a bunch of stuff going on in the industry. And one that I want to at least speak to or call out was Jonathan Hiltz did an insight piece for Stratcann, and he was talking about CCAA. And what interested me in this was, like, you and I've dealt with CCAAs before at Ample, and it seemed like every few weeks, finance was calling me in, and they're like, "Tom, we got another letter. What do we do with this account? They're already over," and making all these decisions on like, fuck, they've become close. And that's the thing, like, we're servicing customers and clients, but they become close, and you realize the importance of their seed to sale or compliance software, and you can't just shut them off. It's like you're fucking shutting the hydro off in the middle of what they're doing. So CCAAs are not new. Let me first state that, because I've been dealing with those since 2018, right? In that setting where we were a vendor to many cannabis companies that, sorry, the dogs are in the studio today, so I'm going to keep an eye and make sure, especially Gordy. But anyways, not new to these because we would see it, right? So it seems like they're more rampant or coming more often, but it was a great piece. It was very insightful to see. So first of all, I did not know under CCAA, you have to be a minimum $5 million in debt. Whoa. Okay. That's a lot,
Decent.
right?
Decent.
I did not know that. But Jonathan pointed out something that he's like, are some of these companies taking advantage of prior to having to file bankruptcy? So meaning they know full fucking well they're going to be going bankrupt. So an initial filing, usually it's responded to. I've done my research on it within 3 to 7 days, and the judge will rule, yes, you can have CCAA or not. In a lot of cases, they can. So what that does is just thwart creditor protection for the time being. The creditors can't come out after you. They can't shut stuff. In certain circumstances, they can. But what was staggering was I don't want to misquote it. I want you to go check out the Stratcann piece. It is a great insight piece by Jonathan. And one of the things that really stood out was, I think it was out of the 500 plus, maybe 800, but I think it was 500 plus CCAA filings each year, 30+% were from cannabis companies. That is fucking huge. And
I think I found the line here from the article. I'm just going to read that for you.
Yeah.
Only 322 of the 808 current cannabis excise license holders were active and remitting excise to. Oh, sorry, this is excise related.
But that's right. But that's the thing. It folds in so many things, right? So there's excise tax. There's, debt due to certain vendors. But it really started me thinking, like, if I'm at $4 million debt, I know I'm going to be going back, because we've seen some of these fucking shady deals, right? We've also held hands with some companies before with Ample to ensure that we worked on, I won't name the company, but we worked very closely with a very prominent cannabis company to help them get out of CCAA, right? And my question is, if I'm sitting at a $4 million debt threshold and I know I'm going under, do I just go further in debt to meet that criteria so that I can file CCAA, knowing full well I'm just taking advantage of this? This is really what this article is about, are these cannabis companies potentially taking advantage of the CCAA? And it made me wonder, because I've seen a couple, again, not going to mention names, where I'm like, well, what the fuck? We've known you were going under for a year and a half. You continue to fucking spiral into more debt on purpose, it seems. In some cases, your executive teams are taking beautiful golden handshake deals or golden parachute deals, and your staff is left with nothing. So under that process, for our audience that doesn't realize, once you get a CCAA, you now need to submit a plan on how the fuck you're going to turn yourself around. And the judge, I'm not sure if it's a committee or what it is, but they will assess that plan and allow you time to take action. So is it restructuring? Is it debt, meaning new debt holders come in, reposition the company? In some cases, which I do not think bodes well for their case, is certain layoff activity, but restructuring operations, supply chain management, all of that, and then you act on it. Now, I don't know how long you would typically get. I think that's at the discretion of the committee or the judge, but it really does make me question, are they taking advantage of it? I'd love to hear from our audience, because some of our audience obviously are very close to this. They live it day in, day out. Some are in the midst of CCAA filings. But I just want to say, despite the article, and read the article, these are not new, right? We're going 6 years in. I've been seeing them for 6 years. And in those early days with the boom, people had more money than they knew what the fuck to do with. And they just spent it like drunken sailors that just arrived on shore. It was atrocious. So anyways, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, CCAA is also not unique to our industry, right? And there's definitely been people abusing, CCAA since it was available to companies, for sure. Right? And I don't think it would be unique to us. So yeah, I'm sure there are definitely people abusing it. I think there's some interesting recommendations in here on what they should do to level the playing field for those who might be abusing it versus those who aren't, right? One of the recommendations in here was to force the LP to resubmit for their sales license while they're going through CCAA, which, they could still sell business to business at that point, B2B, but they can't sell to
the
their
record
standard
medical.
channels.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that it really leaves, so CCAA in this case, if it's a $5 million threshold of debt, what about our micros? What about all those smaller companies that, they're in the same position, but unfortunately and fortunately, they're not in that debt. I don't know if there's other ways out for them. I'm not sure. But I would think that some sort of CCAA would make sense for those as well, right? I don't know. We continue to see it. It's not going to stop anytime soon. It's going to continue. Gaining distribution is one thing. There's a ton of fucking RTVs happening in the industry, an absolute shit ton. Why? Right? Is it the provincial distributors making wrong decisions on what products to carry? Is it they're not getting enough uptake at the retailers? Is it the sell through? Brands, you've worked so fucking hard to get your product to market, to get it on a shelf. Your job does not end there, right? Some of them do it very well, others not so fucking good, right? Enough with the high fives. We've gained distribution, and I'm back to create a new SKU. In some cases, if you're well financed or capitalized, I get why you're doing it and you're testing markets. That's fine. But when that product hits the shelf, you need to support your retailers. If you're not supporting your retailers to ensure that people are aware of your product, and how does that happen? Pop-ups, drop-ins, social. Don't tell me there's no ways, because there are ways. They're not the ways that we would like, but at the same time, support your retailers. If they took the chance to carry your product, you need to ensure that you have an open line of communication to do everything you can to make sure that that product sells. Otherwise, RTVs. Who the fuck wants an RTV?
I've seen way too many big ramp ups, big excitement, things drop, and then all of a sudden, ghost town.
Gone. Like, it makes you wonder. I don't know. I won't say too much about this because I don't even know enough about it, but it was kind of shocking. So Segra or Segra, I think it's Segra. They've invented a tissue culture seed. So it's a synthetic seed, I think. At least the casing is synthetic. That's about all I can fucking say with it. Thanks a lot, muscle relaxers.
So these are synthetic cannabis seeds? Is that what you're saying?
Synthetic cannabis seeds, yeah. So I think they're taking, I don't know the terminology. I'm not fresh up on my tissue culturing and micro propagation, but they're taking some part of the plantlet, enough cells, and they're embedding them into these synthetic seeds that you could use. So think about that for the future of what they're trying to do, with breeding and understanding, what is the market demand potentially. They could potentially program a seed to give you what you're looking for. I don't know. I have to research it. And I'm sorry, everyone. I saw it. I thought it was cool. And I was hoping maybe Wes, like always, something more about it than I do.
Well, it sounds like I'm no expert at all. It just sounds like what you're describing to me is CRISPR technology, right? Being able to edit that kind of genome and
maybe that's it. I don't know.
Design it the way you want. I don't know. It also sounds like, I'm going to be honest, it sounds like something the black market might find black magic and be completely against. Like, this is everything wrong with the industry. Yeah. I don't know.
This is exactly why you motherfuckers are screwing everything up in cannabis.
It's the old line of they never asked if they could, they didn't ask if they should. You know that line?
Right. Yeah. 100%. Today's an exciting show. We're not getting there quite yet, but we've got Darwin Fletcher on from CANEXEC Summit. That's going to be an awesome event coming up. Mm-hmm. And also Jaime Lipowitz, Hi Buds Club.
Indeed.
Looking forward to having her on. In the interim, I do want to say, or at least have a shout out for Omar Ali. Okay. This guy is a fucking hustler. He is, so it's Sessholdings, but one spliff in Cali, right? And I say this because last night I'm, back's fucked up, lazy, looking for pre-rolls. I'm like, hold on. So I'm like, I remember Omar specifically, finding the time to give us some samples. So this was full of some two different pre-rolls. The one was orange runts and the other is Hawaiian snow cone. Now, Hawaiian snow cone, I didn't have any left. Sorry, it's fantastic. Yeah. And then orange runts I tried last night. Jeez, man, like, come on. It's just incredible. One spliff, Omar, you do it right. But what I loved about what Omar does is he'll produce the flower, and rather than taking that flower and just milling it, and I'm not saying in every case, and milling it and throwing it in a pre-roll, he looks for the notes and the terpene profiles to come up with, hey, if I blend these together, it's going to give a really great experience. And you could tell, especially, I loved the Hawaiian snow cone. Orange Runts was just as good, but there was something about the Hawaiian snow cone blend. In this case, it was Skittles and lemon cherry gelato. The Orange Runts is African orange and Runts. Both fantastic, but I love hustlers in this industry. He's at every event he can be at. He personally is at the booth, interacting with all the retailers and consumers in some cases. And speaking of hustlers, I want to do a little shout out. We've been seeing Abi Roach, and man, I fucking love her. I really do. Way back in the day, I don't know if you recall this. You probably weren't into cannabis at the time, but it was Hot Box Cafe in Toronto, right? Yep. She has been in this industry and is an OG queen more than the vast majority of anyone I can even think of. So she had Hot Box Cafe. She's launched a couple different brands. She's, I think, now at McIntyre Creek Cannabis. But she also, what I love is Jane Dope. I fucking love that. I'm going to get a tea of some sort, even though they're very much geared towards women. I just fucking love the designs. But what I love more is her hustle. She is doing as much as she can, supporting as many brands as she can. She's developing brands. She's getting it out there. She's all about community. Abi, you're fucking awesome. Seriously, let's make it happen where you're on Legacies. We've talked about this and internally about, hey, different guests, who do we need on? We go through, the requests and meetings, and we always meet with someone first just to make sure we jive. It's not so much as their story cool. It's, are we going to jive? Because we want to be open and be able to have these conversations. But anyways, Abi, you've been on the list. We just need to make it happen. I think we're booked out to November. But regardless, we're going to hit you up. Love everything you're doing. It's just so fucking cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned something about this the other day, and I brought it up because of something about CANCELL, and you said there's now an alternative solution to CANCELL, and I can't catch everything. I think I might have caught a hint about there's something out. What is it? There's a new alternative, I guess.
Yeah, a new alternative. It's called CTC, or Cannabis Training Canada. And yeah, it's just that. It's now a new AGCO approved alternative to CANCELL, which, quite frankly, I'm quite surprised it took this long to have an alternative. Like, you'd think, they're promoting this as basically, it's a more cost effective than CANCELL from their point of view. It's also a little more intuitive, a little more. Okay. I mean, it's fresh, right? It's new. It's something that CANCELL. I don't know how old.
Had the market cornered for 5 years, 6 years now.
Yeah, and unfortunately, CANCELL is one of those things too that you kind of go through once, maybe twice. I don't think you go through it all the time, right? So it's hard to go back and say, have they done a ton of improvements? Have they been upgrading it? Have they been,
so like keeping up with the industry? And I'm sure they have to if there's some sort of guidance from the AGCO, but
right. But with no competition, are you really driven to innovate in that space?
Yeah.
Whereas this, I feel, is a healthy, okay, there's a big competitor here now and promoting themselves as being more cost effective. And does that cause both of them now to really push the envelope? But yeah, it's just nice to see that there's an alternative there for people looking to get their certificate.
Everyone's gonna have to change their event marketing wares. CANCELL required.
Yeah, that's it.
There's another event we should mention that's coming up. So it is the Elevate Cannabis Retailer Summit. It's in November. I think it's November. Wait, I got it written down. November 12th. Put on VIP Media Group. Jazz, the team. He just fucking blows shit out. But huge retailer audience. Brands, if you're interested, hit Jazz up. Everyone knows Jazz. Hit Jazz up, and he'll make sure that you've got a spot at the table. Air quote table. He's
always hosting great events. Those events are
they're awesome. What I love is they're just fucking fully engaged. If I'm spending money as a brand, I need to make sure my audience is who I need to be catering to, and Jazz makes sure that happens. And I think sometimes I don't know if there's tickets available yet, and I don't know. Check it out. Check out the Elevate Cannabis Retailer Summit for more details. But you need to. I'm just snapping at Gordy in the studio. Don't you fucking chew any cords, you little bastard. But But anyways, it's a great event. Hit Jazz up. If you need more information, it's easier to just hit us up. We'll make an introduction and make sure you're there. But it's going to be a fantastic event as always. Yeah. Okay. Well, my back has had enough sitting. Let's maybe take a quick break. And when we get back, we'll welcome Darwin Fletcher, CANEXEC Summit. See you in a minute.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. We're joined by the founder of CANEXEC Summit, Mr. Darwin Fletcher. How you doing, Darwin?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here, Wes and Tom. Real pleasure. Huge fan of the show, so I'm glad I could participate.
Thank you. Well, we're a huge fan of what you're doing too, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
That's very needed within the industry, and I know the challenges involved. But you're not new. You're not new to putting on events. I mean, you've got some background in doing that. So
that's right. Very, very unique industry, though. It's something the team and I, we've never seen anything like it, but it's something that keeps me excited and maybe my favorite event to work on. I would say over the last 15 years, this is definitely one for the books.
Yeah. So how long has CANEXEC Summit been running now?
Sure. So this is going to be the 4th year, taking place October 3rd and the 4th. We started it in 2020, in fact, but COVID kept us from having an actual event. So 2021 was our first event, and it has
2021 was
a great
first
deal.
That was the first one I was supposed to show up to, and such an asshole, eh?
That's right. That's right.
And so I would have made the premiere. Well, listen, we've seen the guest lineup. I mean, you're super active, and I know how busy. I mean, it's crunch time, right? Mm-hmm. So you're getting all the panels. Dude, some of the panels, you're blowing my mind with why the hell have these not been discussions yet?
Right.
Like, it's crazy, but also the star-studded lineup of individuals. Like, you've got some power players that are going to be on that stage.
I know, and I'm honored that they're joining. And it takes a bit of time to establish credibility with this community, but I think if our objective is right, it's in line with everybody else's value. It's very easy to attract people, and it's pure word of mouth as well. We don't advertise. We don't buy ads in magazines or that. It's just me posting on LinkedIn every now and then. We just got Instagram. I don't know how to use it, to be honest with you. I have no idea. So we just got Instagram. I just started using LinkedIn maybe last year to promote some of the presentations. But it's a really great group, and pleasure to work with these individuals. And you're right, there's a lot of narrative and stories that are not being discussed for various reasons, I think. Mm-hmm. I think
some of them are sensitive.
You guys do a great job at highlighting some of the key players and some of the topics. And, I think there's a big lack in the industry when it comes to journalism, especially around the cannabis industry. I've had all the major papers, Bloomberg, Globe and Mail, National Post, come out to my event. Very, very appreciative of them coming to my event, but I think there's a disconnect between the type of reporting that's happening and really the stories that need to be told.
Yeah.
And I think
we appreciate that
really well.
Well, thank you for that. I love that. But and I wonder though too, so I have so many questions. But when you see typical, I'll say mainstream media print, those individuals, they seem to want to latch on to the negative side of the industry all the time. Right? We know negative sells, right? Mm-hmm. Negativity sells newspapers at the end of the day, or, pay gated, subscriptions online, whatever it might be. But there's a lot of positive still happening, right? I was thinking about this a lot this week going, man, if you go through any given day on LinkedIn, it's negative. There's a lot of negativity. It almost feels like sometimes you're in X or in Twitter, right? And it's like, oh my God, there's so much. But I remind myself, I'm like, hold on. We've had, this is going on 28 conversations. We have a ton outside of Legacies with a lot of silver lining and positivity happening. And when you get a National Post, no discredit to them, I think they're, great publications, but it's in some aspects, but it's like they want to, what was the negative thing that, a certain speaker maybe said on a panel, or the topic of discussion has to be around negativity and CCAA. I mean, we talked about CCAAs before you joined, and it was really just to highlight there's a lot going on, but that doesn't mean the industry is doomed. This happens, right?
That's right. No, 100%. I think I'll add to that as well, Tom, which is, companies are going through CCAA, and I get this feedback a lot from the community, the cannabis community, and they ask me, why is this guy on stage or this woman on stage? They just declared CCAA, or they're bankrupt. They don't have any cash, right? But they still have a story to tell, right? And I think that story needs to be shared. And there's things that we can learn from there. And I think if the people that come out to the event this year versus in 2021. It's individuals with more of a growth mindset, I would say. Mm-hmm. They're much more positive. I was just talking to Mike from MTL, who spoke very highly by Parent. And, the opening presentation of this year, I'm really trying to get it to be positive and looking at, yes, there's chaos going on, the state of the industry, but look at all the positive stories that are happening and all the wins that are happening. And, he described it as, we're in this phase where we're an awkward, gangly teenager, right? And eventually we grow out of that. But, in every industry goes to this. And I think that's one of the benefits that I bring to the industry, which is having had experience in other industries, which were novel and new, and seeing them evolve. It's really interesting theme that we're in right now. And I think, Mike used the term the best, which is we're switching from a promoter to operator. And I've been using that with my team as well. But now we're talking to operators, as opposed to companies that are just trying to pump up their stock price in it for a quick buck, a quick flip, right? I think that game is over. And the discussions now are very operational. And I think that's why I'm able to put this program together. People want to hear that story. So,
of course they do. Well, and, at the end of the day, we learn from mistakes, right? So having individuals that can speak to, we tried this and we failed. We pivoted, we did this and we had success. But, to chastise an event or even a panel because there's someone on it that may be in the public eye, not doing so well operationally, that's very short-sighted as far as I'm concerned. Because again, there's a reason that, On the Shoulders of Giants, I've read the book. Like, you need to learn from others that have, not only they have succeeded, but they've failed a multitude of times along the way.
No, for sure.
So what was the crazy decision or eureka moment to pivot from, your other event space and other industry into cannabis? What drew you to, there's just a ton of shit going on, or was it, listen, I love cannabis. I love the community. What was it?
Yeah, a bit of both. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it was obviously an intrigue in the industry, right? And just a passion for it and wanting it to succeed. I really do want this industry to succeed. I think in our lifetime, will we ever see an industry with this much potential to have not just an impact on people's lives for the better, but such a novel industry, right? I mean, maybe the .com era, right? And maybe
the only thing in my generation I can think of is what is the closest? I mean, I wasn't around, for the air quote industrial revolution, right?
Right.
Well, I was, but I wasn't paying attention, right? I was, sucking on a soother.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what excited me always. And the real reason why I started it was I would meet executives that would be coming to events that I was hosting for manufacturing and supply chain, predominantly targeted towards pharmaceutical manufacturers, all sorts of process manufacturers, food, beverage. And I got to meet these executives that ended up at cannabis companies, predominantly the big ones, Canopy, Hexo, Tilray, Aurora. And they were still coming to events targeting, food manufacturers or pharmaceutical manufacturers, because the content that they were looking for, whether it was figuring out, how to implement operational excellence initiatives or how to build culture, a company culture, or succession planning, fundamentals about the business and operational aspects. It wasn't really there in the cannabis events. And I don't want to take away from any of the events. I think they're great. We've been going to a lot of them, my team and I, and they're incredible, run by amazing people. But I think an event where we're focused on the operational aspects was not there for a senior level crowd, where the content was really created by executives for executives. And that's really our business model, is to we don't really write things. We just put smart people on stage and get them talking. And if you do that and you fill the room with a smart audience who's experienced and passionate, you're going to get great dialogue and various perspectives, various angles, and ultimately as close as possible to a whole picture, right?
Yeah.
Ultimate goal.
Yeah. So in the case with your event, is there a Q&A opportunity as well where the audience actually gets to ask questions of the panel?
100%. And that's something that I'm trying to stimulate more of. And it's been a learning lesson for us, Tom. It's really been a learning lesson, especially for me. And I'm still learning. I'll be honest, this is our 4th year. Typically it takes me about 5 years to get a good understanding of an industry and the people in the industry to cater an event really for them.
Yeah.
And I think we're learning quickly in cannabis, but it is challenging, of course. But Q&A, we try to really make sure that Q&A is 50% of a presentation. So this year we've eliminated solo presentations entirely. We did in the past style sponsored presentations. It was great revenue source, and I'm very appreciative of all the companies that gave me money to do that. But the audience wasn't liking it as much. But more than anything, I didn't feel that the dialogue was constructive.
Right.
And leading to more interesting dialogue and more questions, right?
Yeah.
And I think,
which is why you're there. I mean, that's why you're putting it on. You want to create discussion around that either pain point or success story so that others can glean from that and move on. But it's funny you're talking about succession planning, all these things that, I've worked in and built going, you're right. Like so few cannabis companies, change management, culture, building your culture. Culture is typically a top-down thing, right? It is, this is the leader. They're very present. This is what's happening. It can either be positive or negative. But, you start talking about succession planning. I'm like, guy, come on. These cannabis companies are not doing any succession. Some are, I get it, especially if they brought in other execs from other industries. Right. But it's not necessarily a topic. So you've been privy to a lot of really cool conversations, and you get to meet with a lot of really star-studded type individuals, and these ones that you've seen in the headlines. We used to joke and say, with Canopy in the early days, it was, if the CEO and president took a shit, they were making a press release over it because it was just get as much out as you can, get as much out as you can, right? But in these cases, you meet with all the individuals that are going to be on a panel. You work with them, developing the panel and the topic of discussion. I want 2 responses, if I could, from you. What is the most eye-opening eureka moment in witness of a panel discussion that you've ever had? But also the flip side of that was like, what the fuck did they just say? Did they really just say? So if you have an example of that, I know you're probably running around at the events and don't get to sit for all of the panel discussions, but I'm curious, eureka moment and holy shit, I can't believe they just said that.
For sure. I think I really wouldn't be able to narrow it down to a single presentation, but I think I can talk about an overlying theme, right? I think one is just seeing the change in character and the change in focus that I've seen over the last 4 years. And I think I've had multiple eureka moments. I don't know if I can narrow it down to a single point, but I think seeing companies go beyond to focus on profitability and short-term sightedness has been very eye-opening. That's been incredible. But also recently, just learning about, I think, how important culture is to these companies, especially now, that human resource factor, a huge focus. Certain moments I've seen where people say certain things, which I'm like, I can't believe that person said that. There's been a lot of that for sure, and it's been tough figuring out who's who in the industry for sure. It's been a huge lesson. But first off, these individuals are super generous with their time with me. They take my call. Almost every one of them takes my call, and
that's great.
Will talk to me or text me if they can't take the call. Right? It's very rare that someone hangs up on me or says they're busy. A lot of them are also very open to making introductions, and that's become very easy now. And the wind is definitely on our back now. And there's a lot of people that are super generous with their time. But yeah, some individuals I still see. I think I'm always stunned when somebody just goes up and tries to pitch their company or tries to pump up their stock price. At that point, I'm like, this isn't Benzinga. You know what I mean? Not to take away from Benzinga. Great event, great company.
But that's what it's designed for. It's specifically designed for that.
Exactly. So when I hear people come out and they do announcements like we're doing this release. And, okay. All right. Well.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't resonate with the audience. But on that culture that you just sparked something for me, is there a lackadaisical approach to building and developing culture in the industry, do you think? Just because it's the cannabis community and people think, oh, because it's cannabis, there's already an existing culture and this is the way individuals are and they're laid back and we can't pay you this week. We'll get you next week. Don't worry about that. I'm just curious now have you seen this? Because culture is so crucially important to the success of a company. And I'm wondering if some are just, it's cannabis. There's a culture existing already.
Yeah. No, I've seen it. I've seen a bit of an evolution for sure, especially at the larger companies. It's interesting. It is very interesting. I mean, I think culture means a lot of things to a lot of different people as well. Something as well to touch on one of your earlier points where I'm just like, I can't believe they said that, or I can't believe this is a topic of discussion, which is when people constantly, I think the term is roots versus suits, and that creating that dichotomy, which I think is just made up. I mean, that's my personal take, but I think the emphasis on that, the existence of it in that, it kind of is mind-boggling. And one executive said it when it was brought up on stage from one of the top manufacturers. They said, we don't really care what they're wearing, right? As long as they align with our value system. And so I think really identifying culture beyond what somebody might wear or how they look, right? I think that's a big change. It's
important. That's so important, and I used to get that as well, right? So with Ample, obviously an executive working with John and the team to continue to progress and bring more clients on. And you'd start speaking to individuals, and I was at a ton of different facilities and I'm there representing Ample, right?
Right.
So, and I always used to say, when I'm outside the office, I'm representing Ample. When I'm in the office, I'm representing our customers, right? So if I'm storming around saying, why the fuck have you not responded to this? Or why is this down? That's me representing my customers. But I used to get it too. There's a whole roots versus suits. We know so little in some cases about an individual's makeup, their background, what they've been through. And I was judged a ton, right? Which was, you've instructed cannabis at Kwantlen Polytechnic. You're an executive at Ample Organics, a tech company. You've done this. And I'm like, but I was a grower in the black market. And it changed everything. And the thing is, I shouldn't have to tell anyone that.
Right.
Don't judge anyone based on they wore a suit or their title is CEO on LinkedIn.
Right.
At the end of the day, chances are that CEO is probably still doing some trimming. He's got an upside down 5-gallon bucket and trimming away at some of the plants, right? Helping with the harvest. So this has to stop. As far as I'm, and you see this because as I'm wearing a Legacy shirt, but you see this because of individuals that are still in that legacy market, black market, that or dabbling in both. They want to be in the legal and pick a side, right? This is one area that always say, pick a side, right? You're not going to be able to support a company in the legal space if you're still in the black market side necessarily. And I know I've already been criticized over it and I don't give a shit. At the end of the day, you can't judge someone just because of their title or because they had to put a suit on for the day, right? Some people love suits. They love to wear them. Others, they put them on because that's a requirement of the audience, right?
Right.
So I think it's important to understand that. But, I'm sure there's some things that if you thought about it, you'd be able to like, oh my God, I can't believe they said that. I've been witness to many times a certain individual on stage, I'm walking by, not even watching the presentation, but they say something. I'm like, the fuck they just say? And then I just hush across the audience, right? It's like, I can't believe you just said that. But regardless, I like those moments. Wes, what do you got?
I do have a quick question for you too, Darwin. Again, with all the conversations you've heard at previous summits, we've heard this a lot in, especially on LinkedIn posts and stuff like that, where there seems to be two avenues of people who believe, one that the entire cannabis industry is completely unique, comparing it to things like CPG and stuff is incorrect. And then you get the other camp where it's all CPG, and that's the mindset you need to be in. Have you heard any good talks or arguments either for or against, against that mindset when it comes to the state of the industry?
100%. A lot, both on both sides, and both good arguments from, legitimate people who have the right to have an opinion on that and who are very much on the front lines, right? From leading LPs to small companies that are making a splash. And all these opinions are from LPs. They're not from a consultant or somebody on the outside or someone like myself, right? I have very little opinions on the industry. In fact, it's just, I try to be as unbiased as possible. And this year as well, and last year, this was a theme as well. It is, can you create a Coca-Cola of Canada? I think that was a topic of discussion last year. And we had, head of product from Canopy on there. Kanera, CFO, believes you can do it, right? And Nico believes you can do it. And a lot of people do believe you can do it. And other people think, no, you can't wear the CPG hat at all, right? You got to think about this in a completely different way. I mean, who's right, who's wrong? I don't know, to be honest with you. They both have legitimate arguments, both of them. I will say one thing is that a lot of the executives coming out to this year's event and previous events, a lot of them have CPG backgrounds. And they do have that way of thinking. And so this permeates a lot of discussions when it comes to brand loyalty. Even on the cultivation side, it's a topic of discussion. And cultivation is a competitive advantage, as in, you can leverage your cultivation facilities, your know-how to really nail down consistency. And so when we talk about quality, I think the talk is not about how high can you get or how good does this taste, right? And, which I think some craft producers might be really good at. It becomes, how do we get consistency, right? Because Coca-Cola is not the best tasting or best product in the world, right? But it's consistent, right? And I think that's a big discrepancy that I do see with the CPG focused individuals, whereas individuals are saying, cannabis has to be looked at very.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's good. I like that perspective. I, as you're, talking about that, I'm thinking about some of these individuals because I've had these conversations and they've come from a CPG background and they're like, fuck, this is not the same. This is not the same at all. It can be, but there's regulations that prevent a lot of this from happening. Right. But when you treat the product as such, looking for distribution, I think the piece that's missing is we're still early, right? I keep saying we're still early, we're early, which is the ability to educate, inform, and promote to the consumer demographic. Until things like that change, the world or open sky of CPG and what successfully worked previously will not necessarily parlay into where we can be. But to your point, it's consistency. And unless you've got an extract that you're distilling down and you're doing all these things, it's very hard to get, and meaning you're stripping the terps out as well, because we know their effect with entourage effect through the body. It's one of the whole reasons that, so Ken Weisborough was head of Shoppers Drug Mart at the time running their medical program. And he's pharmacist reformed. And he's like, we need a DIN. He was working strategically and very smartly to try and get cannabis DIN numbers, right? In order for us to see those because we always said, well, when will we see it at a pharmacy? He said, probably not until they have a DIN number. And then the problem underlying was there's no consistency. If I put out a batch of Purple Kush this week, it may be different on my next harvest. And there's, so those consistencies are certainly one of the items that prevent us from being a mature CPG type market, I think. So you're right. Okay. Tell us about what people can expect showing up to the CANEXEC. And I do want to understand this. First of all, is it invite only?
Yeah. Okay.
It's invite. So
it's invite only. Yeah.
How does the invite work? Like you're creating this exclusivity, man, and I gotta be there, and I will be there. I will be there. You've extended an invitation.
You definitely will, yeah.
But I'm like, Wes, it's fucking invite only, man. Do we know anyone? And I look at the panels. I'm like, I know fucking everyone on every panel. Like, why has no one invited me? And finally we connect and you're like, Tom, you're invited. What are you talking about? So anyways, help us understand that. For some, I'm sure they're like, I want to be there.
Yeah.
How do I get there?
Yeah.
I don't know anyone.
For sure. Yeah. It is invite only. So we don't, you can't just sign up. You know what I mean? We've had a couple of people do it and some of them are good and we end up talking to them. I try to talk to everybody that comes out to the event. And I do that because I want to be able to create a program that's relevant for them. And I want to make sure that they're going to be a good fit at the event, right? Our tickets are not cheap. They're significantly more than any other cannabis event out there. And I think we always get a lot of flack for that. It's a much more expensive event to put together. It is pricey, but we just try to create the right crowd. And so the events, the way the invites work is predominantly recommendations. So anyone who's come in the past will make recommendations. And this year, almost all the invites, it's about 70% based off recommendations.
Okay.
In previous years, it was less, and it was us doing research and trying to find companies that are pushing the envelope, trying to find companies that are, that could be a good fit. So we like to target companies that have cultivation capacity, that have some manufacturing capacity, that are involved in R&D, and operators that are in it for the long run. So we're looking for companies that are trying to improve their fundamentals as opposed to get bought out or, make a quick flip, or maybe just a brand, but that brand can change, right? We're looking for an actual cannabis company. I know that's hard to define now because vertical integration is gone, but we're and some brands can be a really good fit as well, but predominantly we're looking for companies that have some kind of operational aspect.
Right.
Typically larger companies as well. So it's really not a good fit for, stores, like 1 or 2 stores. Retailers, typically they're larger. Even LPs, they're typically larger LPs. But that's who we're predominantly going after. And then it's also the individual. We really want an individual who's there that wants to improve their fundamentals as opposed to promote their company. Right.
That makes sense. I love the idea of a curated audience.
Yeah,
I think it's because you're really what you're doing, even though there's ticket sales involved. And I mean, the cost of the tickets are one thing, but when you look at, going back to the Tony Robbins days and all these seminars, and people would drop $5,000 to show up for, a few day workshop, and you walk out of that charged and positive and understanding what comes next. And that you made an investment. And that's the way I look at the CANEXEC Summit. It's not about, I'm just going to an event and, the tickets are expensive to attend. It's you're making an investment to be amongst individuals that have been curated by yourself and team to help you bolster your business and be successful. That's the way I look at it.
Exactly. You said it way better than me. Or anyone on my team. We might have to take that tagline, dog. But
you can use that, buddy. I throw out business ideas all day long over here.
Definitely. No, that's exactly what it is, right? And not everybody is a fit for it, and
and that makes sense.
There's other events out there, right? And we encourage them to look at them, and we love all the other events. Like we're my team and I, we were going to the Kind one. There's another one that's invite only that was really well done. You have the founder on your podcast, Hall of Flowers.
Oh, Rama Mayo.
Yeah.
Rama, yeah.
See, he's got the same idea with the invite only, right? He just wants to make everybody that's relevant, or everybody that's there to be relevant, so that this is somebody that you can either learn from or do business with.
Yeah, they're very selective on which vendors they will allow into their show, because one is, when you're spending money on a ticket, you want to gain value. And in some cases, there's sampling type events. People are there to get samples, interact with the brands. They want to try the product and potentially carry it. And that's, very much geared towards retailers, that sort of thing. They exist. But, Wes and I've said this forever. There's room in this industry, especially now, and especially 5 years ago, for any great idea. So is that an event? Is it a podcast? I mean, more podcasts, bring more. The more conversations that can be had, the more we can reflect an opportunity for change. And I think that's where we're somewhat still starved, right? But I love the idea that, you're curating either your vendors or your panels or your audience even. So kudos on that, because I think it makes sense. If I'm going to drop any amount of money in today's economy, any amount of money is important money to me, right? So I'm going to understand these are the individuals that are going to help. I'm going to build some great connections and network, but I'm going to hear some very important topics that in some cases are sensitive, because I've seen, as you've been posting, I'm looking at, okay, I saw this, I've already seen it on the website, but here's a new one coming up. And I'm like, that's going to be sensitive, interesting. And it's not that you're going for a shock and awe. It's Like, let's have the fucking conversation. Let's put it on the table, talk about it, dissect it, and see if there's some truths and what can we learn from it. So I love that.
Yeah.
What can people expect outside of that? So we know there's awesome panels. There's a lot of great discussions, great networking. What can other people, or what else can we expect?
For sure. And to get on that point, all these speakers are going to be very candid. So I do not let media record on site. I can't record the presentations. That way I can deal with everyone's PR, especially if you're publicly traded. Or, that executive who is in the driver's seat of their company, they can be relaxed, right? They know that this is an environment for constructive dialogue, where they're not going to get, blasted on the press, right? For something they said, or maybe somebody feels they don't deserve to be on stage, right? So, I think you can expect a lot. I think you can expect a bit of controversy on stage as well, a bit of debate. Last year we had some good debates, and I think you're going to get more of that this year, as I'm trying to really facilitate that by trying to create a diverse group that is on each panel and really prepping everybody before. Something else that I think is everyone's anticipating, and you'll see this on the post, I try to post as little as possible. Our headliners are very vague, and that's to keep it very open-ended.
Right.
And not to give too much away as well, because at the end of the day, we don't want to put anybody on the spotlight in the public, right? We want that platform. We want all of our speakers to feel secure and safe and comfortable that this is an area where they can share their ideas and their perspectives and not be judged or over criticized, right? By a quote unquote so-called expert. And is there an expert in cannabis? I don't know. I mean, I get approached by a lot, but I mean, I don't know.
It's tough. There's a couple that I have my go-tos, not necessarily mentors, but certainly have that type of a role in the industry. And they don't always have the good ones always know this and always say this though. They're like, I'm not an expert.
100%.
And you're like, but then you're going, yeah, you are. That's why I'm here asking. But at the end of the day, they're going, I'm no expert. Right. I really am not. But this is what's worked or has not worked for me. And I love that about these individuals. The ones that belong there, that's their response in a lot of cases. So I love that. And it makes sense. Others may criticize and go, oh, yeah, no media, no this. You're protecting them. No, come on, guys. Like, we know why, right? We know things can get out of hand. We know one clip makes it to social. You're out of control. If it gets posted in a news publication, now the stock drops. Like, there's reasons behind this. Okay, so October 3rd and 4th?
That's right. Full day 3rd, that's a Thursday, and then the Friday is a half day. So a lot of networking as well is embedded in there at the end of the day. If you're a CEO of a company, you want to network, you want to get to, and that's where a lot of the good dialogue happens. So it's typically presentation, Q&A, presentation, and a working break. A lot of really good themes this year. The global emerging market is a big one. Operational excellence and just controlling your costs and being able to produce better products is one. The future of the industry as well, looking at the products that could potentially come onto the market. I mean, a lot of products are new, like infused pre-rolls are relatively new. So it's exciting. And just like yourself, I do rely on a few group of individuals as well. And they all tell me the exact same thing. And that's how I know that's an individual I want to talk to. And that's so that's how I gauge the speakers as well. If they come up to me and they say, this is a presentation I did here, I should do that presentation at your event, and you need help writing this program, I'm an expert.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe next year, right? Or we try to be as polite as possible and say this might not be for you.
It's tough. I understand the challenge. There's individuals that we get a lot of reach out, and it's, we'd love to be on the podcast, and it's not that they're not a good fit. It's we have in our heads a roadmap of stories we want to share. And, we're booked out till I think mid-November already. And, so as we're queuing those guests up, we're like, okay, cancellation opportunity. I don't want you to feel invaluable, or you're not valued, but if you want to go on this list, we can do this. If it's a little bit shorter, we can have you on like we're having you on, which is timely and relevant. Anyways, it's all good. I'm looking very much forward to this event. I think that I can only make the one day, unfortunately, but I'm going to make the most of it for sure. But for those that are listening, how they want to attend, how do they get there if it's invite only?
For sure. You could write into info@canexecsummit.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I will respond to you. I will add you back. You know what I mean? I'm very, very keen on learning the industry. I don't know all the players. I feel like I've just scratched the surface. I'm always meeting new companies and new executives and individuals that are amazing, that are making a splash in the industry, that have very different perspectives. So please reach out to me over LinkedIn, especially info@CANEXECSummit.com. Somebody from my team will get back to you, but I do see most of those emails as well and try to stay on top of them. But yeah, write us in. If I do believe we are at capacity. My team's just telling me right now, but we are at capacity this year, but we'll see. You know what I mean? If there is room, I think they're doing a wait list right now. So they've added a couple of names on there.
Wow.
I'd love to, a lot of these people that are coming in, I was looking at the wait list. I'm like, no, we got to make room for this individual right now. Right.
Yeah.
So, it's,
man, I'm feeling like I'm standing outside a bar with a velvet robe. You, Night at the Roxbury, you two, you on the list? I'm not on the list. All right.
Which we didn't expect. So that this year, I wish I could accommodate it, bro. I truly, truly do. And it wasn't something we expected.
It's got to be tough.
At the end of the day, the venue only has so much space.
Yeah, for sure.
And we typically do like to keep it small just to stimulate that dialogue, right? So,
yeah. Well, then that goes against what I was just going to say, which is, maybe Bud Stage or Rogers Center next. I don't know.
You know what? My model, this model, and we've been doing it for over a decade now. Once you go past 250 people, it starts to fall apart. It just becomes too large of a crowd. People come in and go. You will have a good group of people that didn't need another good sized group of people, right? Whereas if you're under 200, you can really stimulate those conversations. The Q&A is amazing, right? Because say you have 200 people that are registered, maybe 100, 120 people is a big crowd in the audience. And that's a good crowd. Because if 20% of that audience starts partaking in Q&A, that's a long Q&A.
Yeah.
10%.
Oh, yeah,
that's a long
sure.
Q&A. So that's the kind of crowd that we like. But no, you can definitely expect some good debate. I think you can expect to hear a lot of candid talk as well, with executives really putting themselves out there in terms of what they see and what they've experienced. A lot of success stories as well. The opening panel is really looking at not just the shift from the characters that are now running cannabis companies and they're more operational focused, but also a lot of the positive stories that are happening. Chaos creates opportunity, and we have a number of those case studies being presented. And I think you're going to see stuff that doesn't get picked up by traditional media outlets, especially.
Right.
And I've had them come out to the event once again, and I'm very appreciative to cover it. But at the end of the day, they miss a lot of really good positive stories and outlooks and lessons learned. I think this is one of those platforms where you will have former HIXO executives, existing Canopy executives talking about lessons that they've learned, right? And they do deserve a stage, in my opinion. They do deserve a voice.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And we need to hear it. Yeah. We need to hear what happened, what's going on, is there a silver lining? But it's going to be an awesome event, man. We're stoked. We're looking very much forward to joining October 3rd and 4th.
For sure.
But we Wes has got one more.
Yeah.
We don't normally do this, but I actually want to hear the answer to this question, just because. So normally this question is reserved for our primary guest, but last week we had Chris Crosby on for Atlantic Cultivation, and normally we have our previous guest ask a question for the next guest. I want to hear your answer to his question. So his is fairly straightforward and simple, but it's what gets you out of bed in the morning? What keeps you motivated? Maybe not just specifically with this industry, but just in general, what keeps you up? What gets you up in the morning and keeps you motivated?
For sure. I think it's just having some sort of an impact. That's really what it is. And that's what really got me into this business and has kept me in this business and has kept me pushing the envelope. And it's not easy sometimes. These aren't really the highest profitable businesses. And starting an events company during COVID might be borderline crazy, but I know, and I've seen firsthand, people come up to me and say, "This helped me do my job better." And if a CEO of a company that has 200 employees or 2,000 employees is telling you that means that we've had a dig, we've had a splash, right, on the universe, and to an extent. And I think that's what keeps me up. It keeps my team motivated. And it is difficult sometimes, especially in cannabis. It's not flush with cash. And when you decide that you're not going to sell sponsorship, it's hard to turn down money. It really is.
Yeah.
And especially when you have salespeople that work on commission, it's very hard to keep them, right? But at the end of the day, you have to have this macro motivation, which is, am I having an impact, right? If this does something, and the impact that we can have on this industry in infancy, it's incredible, right? That we get to be a part of this. I mean, people will talk about this time 100 years from now. This is the pioneering stage of a very novel industry. And to be a part of that, I consider myself to be extremely grateful to be part of that, but very appreciative as well. And just the opportunity to learn. I think it's incredible that these people take the time to talk to me. I'm always very flattered, right? So that's really great. But yeah, just having an impact. If we can contribute to some growth or some knowledge, we fully realize we're just on the sidelines here. I always tell my team we're sitting courtside at this amazing game. You know what I mean? Yeah. But maybe our cheers can help somebody score a 3-pointer or get that good D going. So that's what keeps me for sure.
I love that.
Yeah, it keeps me up as well.
That's awesome, Darwin. Perfect. I think that's, it's a similar motivation. It's what kind of impact can we have? What keeps us driving? And, when you see you're supporting, working with the brands, having these types of conversations, whether it's, on our high flyer side or if it's Legacies, those are the silver linings. They're the ones that, you get up and it's going to be a great day. But anyways, we're looking forward to the event. We thank you for joining Legacies. We know how busy you are. It's got to be chaos going on right now trying to get everything organized.
Oh, yeah. I've got I just had a call for you guys, and they mentioned you as well. So, I was stoked to be on your show, man. I watch you guys. And so,
I appreciate
I love it. I think this kind of journalism is essential and needed for the industry for sure. It's just that open-ended dialogue, right? And hearing different perspectives. But I'm looking forward to having you guys there, and hope you guys do some interviews on site as well, right? So I know a lot of people would love to talk to you as well. And there's some, like Chris he's going to be at the event.
Chris is in Prague right now.
Yeah, that's right. He emailed me yesterday, but no, I'm looking forward to him. Yeah, we've got a couple of panel talks that I'm going to be doing right after this program with some big LPs and smaller ones that I think are going to be getting a lot of attention on the health and wellness side, which is a big
awesome. Love it. Well, Darwin, thanks for joining Legacies, man. We appreciate you taking the time.
Superman, I appreciate the love, and thanks for having me here, and great job, man. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to seeing the rest of your podcast as well.
Thank you, sir. When we return, Jaime Lipowitz of High Buds Club.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Jaime Lipowitz. Jaime, spelled Jaime. We got it right this time.
That's my fault.
Took 2 tries, but thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
How's your day?
Yeah, it's been busy, like I've had a couple calls. I started a fire on LinkedIn. It's been a good day so far.
I caught that, and I'm so caught up in our studio days that I'm like, I'm just going to make a quick comment and then I'm moving on. I'm not going to just a quick, but first, before we get into any of this stuff, how was Greece? I'm so fucking jealous.
Oh my God. So, it was amazing. So for anyone who doesn't know or doesn't follow me, I unplugged, turned off my phone, and I went sailing for a week in Greece in the Aegean Sea. And honestly, the true luxury is turning your phone off. Like that to me, it was better than anything else. But, what I found was it was really incredible. Sailing is something that requires so much planning and so much thought about the future and how things are going to go, but you must live in the moment. And so, like you have a route and then the winds don't play in your favor. You got to go somewhere else. You have a plan to go to an island, but your boat's out of water, you got to reroute. Like there's all of these pieces to it that requires you to think, but also be present. I couldn't sleep in my berth at all. And so every night I would drag my mattress out onto the deck and sleep outside under the stars. And wow. I live in the middle of Toronto. Like, we don't have stars here.
We don't have stars. They don't exist here.
They don't exist here. But it's so interesting to think about, just connecting back to what it means to be a human, right? Like the things we don't need all the things that I think we often think we need. And there's so much joy in just like the world, you know,
just
so
letting go of it. Yeah, man. And as you're saying that, and I think I did catch this because you had posted about it, but drawing that parallel or that line to the cannabis industry, like everything can fail and we may have to pivot. And, you know, tacking in sailing, right? I've had that experience, not in the Aegean Sea by all means, but it was off the coast of Annapolis, out on a sailboat, huge sailboat. It was a friend's father's. And I did the same. I slept on the top under the stars. And I'm like, I was very young. I couldn't appreciate it the way I could today, but I was like, this is magical. Like, this is so cool. But that disconnect is so important, but also I feel we're very similar in some cases, and FOMO. Like, I'd be like, something may be going on. I might be missing something. What's going on in the industry? I don't know. It starts to die off after a couple days, but the first couple is always difficult for me.
Yeah, a week was perfect. I was like ready to get back to life. But no, I, for the first time in 5 years, didn't think about the cannabis industry at all.
Nice. It's like, Wes, we're going to Greece.
Yeah. I thought like I'm working on some creative projects right now, and I thought like, oh, I'll get inspired when I'm there, or like, and nothing. Like I didn't think about my team. I didn't think about my campaigns. You know, like it was, I don't know. It's like the same thing with like technology. Sometimes you just have to like unplug it and plug it back in to like get it going. And like that unplug is already, I see, paying in dividends. Like I have, my creative juices are flowing again. I can see things much clearer. Yeah, it's not selfish to take a break. And so
it's not. And that's one of the things, especially as entrepreneurs, we always do that, right? We're wired and programmed to be always on, always thinking, what's next? What can we do? How can we pivot? How can we make this work? But what they say is, if you're able to, once you get past that first day threshold of fully disconnecting and just being in the moment, you really needed it. So if you were able to do that, chances are you really needed it, right?
Yeah, it was also interesting. I was the only one who turned my phone off. And so to see everybody else, we're literally in the middle of the Aegean and they're like on a conference call or like,
oh, no.
And I just was like, you suckers. Like,
yeah, quit spoiling my buzz over here, people. Like what are you doing?
I don't care. I don't care about, for once, I don't care about your deal. Like, No,
but what about what is one area? So, because I think some of our audience knows that I consult for a company in Europe, but Greece, where are they at with cannabis? I haven't even paid attention.
Yeah, so I spent a night in Athens before we left. I walked out of my hotel 2 blocks and there was a cannabis shop just standing there. They sell minors, no THC, but only minors.
Okay. Yeah.
And then in some of the ports, like I would see Rizla, I would see PAX, I would see like real brands, like brands from North America that have European presence or international presence. And like, I think we're often in our bubble and we forget that there's a whole world out there that like uses these products too. And they're real brands.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think when I was in Italy, so when you're talking about the minors, I'd seen some dispensaries, and at the time, this is going back, I think we went for our anniversary, and I'm like, holy shit, there's dispensaries. And then I go in, I start talking to them, like, it's all CBD product and less than, I was super pumped. And then, but just the conversations I was having. So the Italian government was growing it, similar to where we started with the mines. What was it? Peace. It wasn't the Peace Project, something like that. But I'm like, woo, well, hopefully you guys don't make the mistakes that we've made, but we've also set the stage, right? So now we need to live up to what we're doing. Yeah, they're all, trust me, I know. I know.
They're making all of the same mistakes.
Oh my God. That's why I say almost week over week, I'm on with different operators in Europe. And I'm like, don't say, yeah, but you did this in Canada. Yeah, but you did. I hear that. So yeah, but you guys did this in Canada. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't mean we did it right.
Doesn't mean it worked.
Not even close. Doesn't mean it worked or is working.
Anyways,
working. Yeah. Let's talk about High Buds Club for a second. So, we'd connected. We wanted to understand the story, make sure we jive, which we jive. I think we'll let the audience figure that one out, but I think so. You've got a fucking army, like huge army. And for some, they see Jamie, professional, getting under people's skin at times and talking the truths and doing this, but they don't realize the lead up, the entrepreneur spirit that it took to do it. So one, tell us, I love the eureka moment. So share that story, and then we'll build on that a little bit.
Which story?
The eureka moment of, I need to start High Buds Club.
My eureka moment, sure. So to give you a background, you called it entrepreneurship. I have always been what I think of as an intrapreneur. I've worked in, multiple organizations where, well, really not multiple, really only two, because I tend to stick to things for like 5-6 years at a time. But I have built businesses for other people, and I've built books of businesses for other people, always in like creative advertising world. So I've played in the marketing and media space essentially my whole career. And in 2018, I met Snoop Dogg's manager and business partner, and he offered me a job to help build out Mary Jane, which at the time was the agency of record for Canopy Growth. It was too exciting for me to say no. And so I said yes, and I jumped into this insane world. And I got access to some of the biggest rooms, Snoop's lawyers. I essentially worked within the walls of Canopy Growth for the first year of legalization when they were the world's largest cannabis company and the behemoth that they were at the time. And I watched and I listened and I learned. And, retail opened in Ontario in April of 2019. Just before that, February of 2019, I was in Los Angeles with the Canopy Growth team. And we were taking them on a market tour, showing them different dispensaries, what was, going to come to Canada, what this was going to look like, how things could potentially be merchandised, like what the breadth of products and innovation looked like. And I'll never forget, I was in Venice Beach in Los Angeles, and I went looking around, and like, I really love a vape pen. Especially like a good disposable. And I picked one in a store based on the way it looked. Like, I'm a brand person. I believe brands are built they should be purposeful. And I went to the budtender. I didn't even look at the price, but I went to the budtender and I said, like, I'll take that one. And she said, well, actually, I think this one's better. And I was like, okay. Why? And she said, well, the battery lasts longer on it, so you'll get more of the oil. The oil, I think, tastes better, and it's the same price. So, like, I just think it's a better buy. And so she's the subject matter expert, not me.
Sure.
And so I buy it. I didn't think anything of it. I buy it. I walk out the door. I open up this vape pen, and let's just say it was not a brand I ever would have purchased. It was not designed for me. It was not marketed to me. It was not my aesthetic. Like, it wouldn't have been anything that I ever would have bought, but I bought it. And I had this, like, literally like in a cartoon, like this like light bulb moment of just like, oh my God, brands are going to spend tons of money on marketing. They are going to try to bring customers down their funnel. It's traditional. It's how CPG goes. And all it's going to take, they're going to spend tons of dollars. They get to that bottom part of the funnel. They're about to purchase. And all it takes is the budtender to say, don't buy this, buy that. Yeah.
The power, the wielding power of a budtender.
The power.
Like, seriously.
Yeah. And I couldn't let it go. I just fixated and focused on it. And at the time, like, I told everyone who would listen, like, this is where the money goes. This is how we build brands. This is how we invest. It's the bottom up. Like, and no one listened. I got a lot of like pats on the head, a lot of like, oh, that's nice, but that's not what we're going to do. My favorite was when they would say like, oh, that's not part of the strategy. That's not how we're doing it.
Yeah. The strategy's locked in stone. Sorry, people, we can't change it.
But the thing that always appealed to me about this industry from day one to today, it's not built yet. You can't tell me this is how we do things. It just simply doesn't work, because you don't have a case study to show me this is why we do it this way, because this is the effective way of doing things. Nobody has failed enough to know how we win. And one of my mentors once told me, I'll never forget this, Jaime, there's margin in mystery. And so I kept thinking about that. I know budtenders are valuable. I know they're going to be valuable. There's money here. There has to be money here. And the beautiful thing about value, I think, is that it is completely subjective. When no one knows what something is worth, they're only willing to pay their perceived value of it.
Right. Yeah.
And so I figured, well, everybody's going to go do it wrong. If I can do it right, there's value.
Yep.
And so that was the initial hypothesis or thinking around what High Buds Club could or would be.
Yeah. Obviously a lot of groundwork, a lot of research, but were you seeing anything, because Canada, again, still new, but very new at the time, was there anything going on similar to that where, certain states within the US or just across the US, they had something similar happening? Like, was there any inspiration that you could at least glean some formative opinion on this will work or not work, or how do we engage?
Yeah. So at the time, Canopy Growth was building something called High Society. It was their version of a budtender club. And I come from a world of culture. And in my opinion, I don't think Canopy is ever going to be or could ever be at the forefront of culture. And my instinct was, I can do it cooler. I can do it. I think I'm confident enough in my abilities to know what I know. And I know brand. I know what people want. I understand it inherently. I am a brand person through and through. And I always knew that this was two parts. It was a connection for brands to be able to connect to budtenders, but it was about building a brand for budtenders and building a brand that budtenders could buy into and could see themselves in and take part in. And when you look at me alone in my home with my laptop, trying to do this with no resources, and Canopy and their multi-million-dollar budget that they couldn't accomplish, it tells me that my instinct was right. This has to be built from the ground up. You can't pour money on this community and hope that they buy into it. They have to see themselves in what we're doing. They have to want to participate, and they have to want to engage.
That makes total sense. But I would think that your experience, advertising, marketing certainly helped that, right? So when you're looking at even just going in knowing I want this based on the aesthetic, I'm still very much drawn to certain brands just based on their aesthetic, their ability to market. And sometimes they're just really cool. I can align with what the brand is. But in this case, you're looking at it going, well, hold on, there's an influx issue here that we're going to see in Canada, especially knowing the regs, because again, coming from that space myself, I'm going, fuck, packaging was made for this. I say this, everyone ad nauseum. People are probably just sick of me saying it. Packaging was designed to educate a consumer. That's why it's there. Yeah, it's going to look pretty, but the information you can put on, and then I'm going into these dispensaries going, fucking give me some bifocals. I can't even read anything if it's even on a shelf. And then you end up asking the budtender, what are your thoughts? What do you like? What's going on, right? So it makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about packaging, but I don't think 80 to 90% of the brands take advantage of the packaging that
no, they just say, oh, too many restrictions.
We have.
Yeah. Right. No, they just look at it and it goes too prohibitive, too restrictive. We're going to get our logo in there. We're not going to have it in contrast. We're going to make it smaller, and that's just all it's going to be. And they're missing out so much.
Yeah, I find a lot of this industry lacks thought. They lack thinking, and they lack the ability to take the opportunity at hand and really analyze it and figure out how they're going to play within it. part of it is the foundation of this industry. You know, we all had like sugar daddies and big investor dollars and pouring cash on things as if you could buy big, and you can't.
Right.
You have to build things. Things happen organically. And so, like, you know, you called out like, now I'm loud on my channels and all of those things, but there was a long while there where it was just me plotting and thinking and moving the pieces around the board to get to a place where I could do those things. And there wasn't a lot of money.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, those early days, money is only going to exacerbate a problem, right? So if you don't have a good strategy to begin with, and all of a sudden a few $1 million is dumped on that just takes what's already flawed and amplifies it. Now we see all the chinks in the armor, right? But okay, so you get the idea, you're doing some work with Canopy. I'm going to build this better, build it bigger. I'm sure at the time you're like, I'm going to build this better and bigger than I've even seen. How do you get that started? Like, just call up some friends that might be in the industry and go, hey, do you want to join my community? Like, how do you get traction?
So I believe all the best businesses need to have product market fit. You need to understand if there's a demand for what you're doing, and like, if the idea is good in any capacity. So before I had a single budtender, I built a deck with the idea and I shopped it around, and then a brand bought it. And so I had a customer before I ever had a single budtender.
That's not a bad thing.
Well, so that told me that what I was doing was viable, that there was going to be a market for my products and, you know, my version of innovation. And I sold a program for April of 2020 for like a 420 type of program. And this is before the pandemic or anything, but it was built on this like box concept, because I, at the time, things had changed and my business has changed, and, you know, there's certainly been an evolution, but at the time brands couldn't sample budtenders. And I believe there's major parallels to cannabis and the beauty industry. And just that in and of itself told me that brands had to sample budtenders. And so, you know, all good businesses solve problems. And so that was initially the problem that I was solving, the ability to get samples into budtenders' hands with a feedback loop attached to it. That's always been, feedback and data has always been like at the ground level of everything I do, because you need insights to be able to know if you're going to go left or go right or continue going straight, right?
Yep.
And so I sold a scope of work that I knew I could accomplish, you know, like I knew that I would be able to deliver on. And then the pandemic hit, and it turned out to be the biggest blessing in the world for me, because everybody was at home, and with everybody at home, they didn't have anything to do, and so they needed somewhere to engage. And so we built essentially a digital third space for them to be able to come to and connect. And because budtenders were considered like essential workers and cannabis was an essential service, they were still going to dispensaries and working. But then they came home and they needed something to talk about and connect with and have a social life around. And that's how the platform was born. It was really started as a Facebook group. And I really just saw the level of like engagement of the members and like how interested they were in talking about the products that we were delivering to them and doing reviews, and how like you would get like a nug shot of something and there would be 35 comments on it and like, oh, I can't wait to sell it. I can't wait to buy it. Like, that looks incredible. And so just from that insight alone, I was like, oh, they're into this. Like, this is really like, it's not just about giving them weed. It's about elevating being a budtender and access to information and, you know, getting them stoked. There's so much of this that aligns with like sneaker culture, cannabis culture and sneaker culture you know, are so closely aligned. And like, there's something about this like hype beast nature of what we're doing that's totally applicable to the Budtender. And I just saw it early. That's it.
Yeah.
I saw it early. And the truth is I was sick of working for other people and building businesses for other people. And I firmly believe that you should always believe in yourself and invest in yourself. I also knew that the business that I was building was not out of scope in terms of my experience. Everything that I've done up until this point has given me insights and experience that's let me have a foundation to be able to build and lead this business. And so I think it was a lot of right place, right time, right opportunity. And then like, also like, you got to be brave. This shit's hard.
Yes, it is. It is. Well, and I think that, you know, it's a testimony to, you know, holding out and continuing to build and grow, which you've done. But how big is High Buds Club now? Because for those that are unaware, maybe you live under a rock, I don't know. How big is the Budtender community on High Buds Club?
Yeah, I've got 7,000 Budtenders on my platform.
Jesus.
Yeah, we get
that's incredible.
2,000 members every month logging in and engaging. I get 34,000 contributions every month from our members.
Wow. So wild.
Yeah,
so the insight obviously is beyond spectacular. But how do you know, because we say, you know, the Budtenders are the lifeblood of the industry, and I truly believe that. You know, they can make or break a brand in some cases at certain stores, certain chains, but also you've got a community. I mean, this is an army. That's why I said at the beginning, you've built an army. So, you know, someone has a bad experience with a product, 7,000 members are potentially going to see that. That is fucking massive. Like, and how many you know this better than anyone. How many Budtenders are there approximately in this industry in Canada?
I believe at any given moment, there's between 18 to 20,000 employed Budtenders in Canada.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's, I mean, they're retail workers, right? So there's always going to be a very high turnover. There's always going to be people coming in, coming out, coming back. The interesting thing I find, though, about this industry specifically is the Budtenders are totally transient, but they go to work at other stores. So they're in this industry and they might in a year work at 3 or 4 different shops, but they're staying in this industry, and they really look at being a Budtender as a piece of their identity and a passion point of theirs. And so that's what's, I think, a little bit more nuanced in terms of like the retail landscape is this isn't, I go back to like Sephora, like this is like a Sephora cast member who like maybe doesn't work at Sephora anymore, and maybe they go to MAC or maybe they go somewhere else, but they're still in the beauty industry.
Right.
The Budtenders want to use the retail experience to elevate their careers and do epic things in this industry. They want to participate.
Yeah, that's wild. And that's, I've noticed that time and time again, just depending on which dispensary I'm in, the vast majority you can tell they want to be in the industry. And it's not just because, I have access to cannabis. Even if you weren't, you have access to it. It's not like you're getting it free all the time. I think good dispensaries, I saw this recently, I can't even remember where it was, but there was a post on, I think it was LinkedIn potentially, but it was a post talking about previous employment versus current employment and how they're celebrated now. And, you know, free samples aren't held over their head for performance and its distribution. And it was just a completely loving, caring environment compared to you're a worker, come in, do what I tell you and leave. But I would think with the community that you've developed, you have a lot of influence when it comes to working with the brands that you work with as well.
Yeah. I mean, I always think like the brands who get it, and the brands who don't. So, you know, like when I do a platform walkthrough and somebody says to me like, I just can have my rep drop off a sample. It's like, it's not my job to sell this to you and it's your job to be able to determine that this is a valuable opportunity for you. And I think that like there's a TikTok sound that's like the girls who get it, and the girls who
Yeah.
don't. And like,
Yeah.
that's sort of how I feel about the marketers and the salespeople in this industry. There's like a few times where I am like, oh, I don't need to talk to you anymore because like, you don't get it. And like, if you don't get it, it's not my job to teach you to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. The hard sell is still very prominent in this industry. And it's like, even ourselves, we've just kind of given up on it. We're like, we can't convince you that the sky is blue if you're just going to tell us all day that it's black. It's just not going to work. Right.
Well, I just think to myself, like, you send a sales rep into a store, they drown in a sea of noise. You can't get a piece of feedback at all. You have no idea if anyone even tried your sample or liked it. And it costs the brand anywhere from $50 to $80 to send a rep into a store to drop off a sample.
It's crazy. It's
if
crazy.
You don't understand how I'm going to help you, spend your money.
Are we seeing a shift, Jamie, from what was previous? There was, the sales agency building out sales teams, these drop-ins. I've seen personally a couple signs on no reps on the windows going into some of these. And I'm like, I get why. But I think the methodology is also flawed as well, which, you want a community talking about your product, experiencing your product. Obviously, you're not going to send out a sample to every single bud tender. I mean, 7,000 samples, they're already struggling financially, some of these brands. But, the ability for some, like, are you getting candid feedback from your community? So, take, for instance, we had Adam Coates from Decibel on talking about general admission, and they were just relaunching the Quest flower into market. And I had the chance to sample some of the product. And I told him straight up, I go, infused botanical terps are not my thing. I understand there is a demographic and a market for it. So I don't poo-poo on that at all. But it's not for me. But he did a beautiful job of explaining the demographic, why it exists, and why they've got the distribution they've got in comparison to where Jeter's had just entered the market. And I think another one was there as well. But when you're interacting, or when your bud tenders are interacting, do you see more positive or negative? What do they focus on the most? So they really love a product, they're going to promote it amongst their community, or is it more, this is shit, don't touch it, don't recommend it? So
it's a layered question. So the baseline of my community is pretty positive. And I think that, we're very open with the members that like, you have a voice. We want you to use it. We want you to be honest, but you need to be kind. So there's we don't tolerate hate speech, harassment, like bad language on the platform, because just plain and simple, you'll just get removed. So I would say like, in comparison to like a Reddit where like people say like really nasty things, like the overall tone of the community is quite positive, but still honest. In terms of feedback, before we send anything ever, we survey the budtenders. I'm huge on data, like feedback loops. Yeah. I live and breathe them. And so before we send anything, we deliver a pre-flight survey. They fill it out. And then when the flight lands, the budtenders have 2 weeks to fill out the post-flight survey.
Oh, okay.
Here's what's impressive. I have a 92% completion rate on post-flight surveys.
Wow.
And so when you think about, I mean, it's really very simple why. We fear of lost them, that if they don't fill out the survey, they are automatically not eligible for the next 3 flights.
Sure. Well, that's smart though. You need to be able to control it. Otherwise,
that's right.
Just send me samples.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And so we hold to it, and we have and they know. And like, we'll get emails like the day things are due, like, I need another day. Like, don't send me through the flight, But when I look at that in comparison to when a rep drops off a sample in store, they come back the next week and say to the bud tender, the purchaser, whoever, like, what'd you think? They get a generic answer. Oh, it was good.
Right.
It's great.
Yeah.
What'd you drop off? Sorry, who are you?
Yeah. It's like asking my son how school was. Good.
Oh my God, you get me started on children's answers.
Nothing back from it. But it's the same thing, right? You need to quantify and qualify the questions that you're asking. Otherwise, you're going to get generic bullshit that does not help.
Well, right. And you also have to give them an incentive to be honest with you. And so the reason we survey before they get anything is so we can build a baseline to understand where you currently are in the market. Like, this is what you've done on your own. This is where you currently exist. This is your this is the community's perception of you. Then we deliver an experience. It's not a sample, it's a brand experience. And then they've got 2 weeks after they've received that to fill out the post-flight to understand what happened with the experience. And we often see a shift, we see, and when we do it consistently, like I ran a program with a brand over the course of a year where there was 4 flights every quarter, same brand. And and this brand was not well liked. We saw consistently every time they did a flight, it would their willingness to recommend would inch from 7.5% to about 15% every single time. We'd survey them again, we'd do the flight with the survey, we'd get the results. We'd know that they were at let's call it a 56% baseline of willingness to recommend. 3 months later, we'd do another flight, and we would usually see it would stay at about 55, 56%. We'd deliver an experience. They'd be at 65%. The next time, they stayed standard at about 65%. And so we could see time and time again, this is where you guys are with your own baseline of marketing and what you guys are currently doing. This is your perception. We're coming in with influence to deliver an experience, to, communicate your brand values, to communicate the reasons to believe, whatever the purpose of that message was. This is what they think of you now. You go silent for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Here's another survey to show it was consistent. It stayed. Here, we're going to go influence them again. And we can see the climb. A lot of brands, though, think that they can go, show up in a dispensary once a year because they're spread so thin, and it's going to push the needle. And the truth is, it's like, I think of brand building, sales, they all fall under the same bucket as a slow beat. It's just a slow, consistent, day in,
drip
day out
campaigns. Yeah, they exist for a reason. Yeah.
What are you promising me? Are you delivering on your promise? And you're consistently saying, this is my promise. This is my promise. This is how I'm showing up to you. Yeah. But a lot of this industry is, quite frankly, run by amateurs who have no idea what they're doing. And they went from coordinator to VP in 18 months. And
that always fucking blew my mind. In this industry, I've never seen someone go from, entry-level employee to now they're the VP executive. And I'm like, hold on. How much experience do you even have managing people? Because there's managing processes and things and managing people. In some cases, I'm looking at this going, they have fucking zero experience. Do you know anything about change management, how building culture, HR, any of this stuff? And you see that quick, right? It's like 6 months, a year, even as you say, 18 months. And why? But also, let me ask you this, Jamie, because we have this background in advertising, how have we drifted so far away? Wes and I have had this. We've got other individuals on our team. When we talk about campaigns to brands, they want to do a one and done with anything. Oh, can you do this? And I'm like, that's not how campaigns work. We have to flight it. Think of a media company. You're buying media space on a television. They don't just throw them all in one ad segment. It is flighted over the day, over the week, over the month, over the year, but also multi-channel marketing. They're hitting you on your inbox. They're hitting you on a billboard. They're hitting you in a bus shelter. Whatever it is, but this is an industry of one and done. What the fuck? I don't get it. Because I just tell people straight up, don't even spend your money. Don't even spend it. There's no sense.
Yeah. Well, so what you're talking about is a lot of brand marketing. And I think the only thing people in this industry ever think of doing is product marketing. I consistently hear about the return on my investment. And you need to measure your ROI. Of course you need to measure your ROI. But if you think that you're going to give out one sample and that's going to equate to X dollars in sales or whatever, and it's just not. And so, I'm sorry to tell you.
Absurd. It's just absurd to me. And some of these individuals come from that CPG, advertising, marketing, very prominent type roles, and they're thinking that they need to do it all different. And this is the industry to fix that.
But that's part of the challenge, I think. What you just said is they all come from these CPG industries. And the reality is that when you've been a brand manager at Campbell's or wherever, you're inheriting a legacy brand that has lived for 100 years or 50 years, Coca-Cola, whatever it's been.
Right. It's got mind share. There's mind share there. Yeah.
And you're given a playbook and said, go execute this playbook. This industry is really about building from the ground up. It's what I said earlier. You can't tell me this is not how we do it because there's no way of doing it yet. And so I think, one of the reasons I started this business is I've known for a good chunk of my career, I'm a builder. I'm not a scaler. I'm somebody who can take something from nothing and turn it into something. And then I get bored and want to go build something else. And so that's just the truth of the matter.
At least you know it. Thank you for knowing it at least, because so many don't.
That's it. So I know I'll get my business to X dollars in revenue. And then there's going to be a time where I'm going to say, I want to go do something else. Whether
that is a good
or not.
That's a good founder strategy though. And I've worked with so many founders, right? The founder syndrome is very real. But it's like, I'll look at something and I'll go, well, what's your exit strategy? They're like, exit? I'm just getting started. And I'm like, no. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Do you envision how much you're selling your company for? What type of individual you want to come in and run it? Maybe your exit strategy is just, I'm going to Irish exit into the darkness for a little while and someone else is going to run the company for me. Maybe that's it. But so many business plans without an exit strategy, I don't get it. It's in this industry for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't know that that a lot of the people in this industry, like when you're given hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, it's like they don't necessarily need to think about their exit strategy. They're playing like a market game. They're padding their own pockets and not thinking about like how is this going to exist, not just today, but in 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Like, I always thought it was so funny and so interesting that Canopy would say like, we're the Coca-Cola of weed. And I was like, you've been around for 6 seconds. Like you haven't sold a single product. And like, I don't care that you have $5 billion in the bank. You don't have a brand.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's crazy. Let's dive into the psyche a little bit of the Budtender. There's a question that I've been saving to ask you because Wes and I have joked before, right? We run swag. We've got brand partnerships on the side and doing some stuff. And it's not even about the swag, right? It's about SEO and digital presence is all we're doing. But the swag is a nice to have. We always joked and said, listen, you can get swag. You can drop off a sample, drop off a t-shirt. But as soon as that t-shirt is in the wash, that Budtender is going to forget about your brand. So the question is, how many brands out 300 to 500 SKUs being stocked in a store, conservatively in some cases, how many brands or products can a Budtender potentially be familiar with to recommend at any given time?
It depends how effective the communication strategy is of that brand. So if a brand is banking on Budtenders liking them, that's a losing strategy because attention is fleeting. And like, I like a million things. You have to teach Budtenders how to sell your products. And that's how you win their mind share. A lot of it also is, there's a lot of like, I don't want to say FOMO is not the right word, but there's a lot of hype in this industry. And so often I find a rep walks into a store and maybe they're really like, I think a lot of the business today is built on personal relationships, not built on what's right for the store, right? So like, you're going to pay me X dollar kickback, or you're going to do this, or I really like you. I don't know if your product's good, but like, I'll give it a flyer and like try to see if like we can push it. I think where the industry moves to is brands like Jeter, brands who have a very clear marketing strategy, who have a very clear sales enablement strategy, and who are able to teach the Budtenders how to sell their products. Like, you don't need them to love you. You just need them to be willing to recommend you.
Stark contrast. I never really thought it that way. But, and Jeter, and speaking of Jeters, like, I mean, I've said this throughout every industry. I don't have to like the product, but if they're getting in my mind and they're there, chances are it's going to sell. And are they supporting, right? You're talking about go-to-market and sales strategies, all these things. Provide your retailers with some assets, something like create top of mind awareness outside of anything so they're even asking about the product.
Yeah, but like, I'll give you an example. We run on the network. We run product knowledge sessions like once a week. And we build decks out for, like, usually a brand will give us a deck, but we have a template now for brands to like fill in so that we can get the right pieces of information to be able to teach the budtenders how to sell the product and like create value out of that session. The majority of brands look at me like I have 17 heads when I ask for their PK deck. When I ask them for very basic pieces of information that, like, I've been a sales rep for a good chunk of my career. I know how to sell. I don't need, like, I can quickly tell who is set up to win and who is set up to fail by the things that they communicate to me. And most marketing teams can't fill out my deck, which I've then started to ask, like, what are your sales reps saying in store? Like, you're sending these reps in, and if you can't tell me this, what are they saying to the retailers and the budtenders? Yeah,
it would just be they're unequipped. There's no consistent messaging across the brand or the company.
Like me.
It would have to be.
You like me to sell my product.
Yeah. Oh, when are you on break? Do you want to go smoke a joint? Like, let's go do that. Oh, you're going to carry this, right? Yeah. Like, man, it's so
There's
difficult.
No finesse.
Yeah. Yeah. So with these, we've seen the rise and fall of certain brands in Canada. Are there any that are completely stand out? I know Jeter's, you talked about Jeter's being on point with that, but are there any that did really well and then just fell off the radar? They're just gone for some reason. They're still in market, but they're just not present. They're not marketing, whatever it might be.
You mean besides Tweed?
Well, Tweed's another story. Yeah. Jeez.
Like brands the budtenders like? Or just
I'm just wondering, like ones where it was great marketing. They had a great product at the end of the day, and it was doing really well. But for whatever reason, and that's what I want to get to is why? Why did they fail? Like what ended up happening when they were doing everything else so right?
I don't know any brands that have failed. I think that's too early to be able to to answer that question. Like, I don't think we've reached that like sort of time horizon where good brands fail, which will happen. Sure. But what I can say is, like, I know the brands where things are working. Like, I think Carmel is doing an exceptional job in like.
Carmel's incredible.
But like, the thing that I always say about Carmel is, like, Animal Face was their first SKU. It's still a top 5 SKU. Coca-Cola doesn't release a new product every 60 days. And
I remember when they changed the formula,
right? Like, Coca-Cola is a Coca-Cola, like, no matter
There's
what.
Consistency. Yeah.
There's
100%.
consistency. And so I think the brands, it's like so cliche, but the brands that are doing well are the brands that like have a strategy, have a plan, know who they're speaking to. They're not trying to be everything to everybody. And they're also not trying to be like a vanity first place. So I think a lot of these brands are like, going after this, like, I think of them as vanity metrics. Like, we have 98% market share. And I'm like, okay, but you lose money. Like, who cares?
Yeah. Based on what? We went through this a couple of weeks ago, just going through data and analytics and understanding distribution and distribution points and sales. And someone had made a comment and I'm like, well, but based on what? Like, just because you have distribution doesn't mean you're selling. And just because you're selling doesn't mean that people are happy with your product, because we haven't gone full cycle yet, which means, is there a repeat buy there? I still have trouble wrapping. I think I'll have things figured out, and then you drop these truth bombs on me and make me rethink things, right? Let me ask this before I forget. With budtenders, I mean, in the space of budtenders, right? What is the incentive to learn about a brand, right? Because we see PK sessions, we see that, brands will go out of their way, whether it's through High Buds Club or other means. Maybe they host their own PK type sessions. We've done a couple for some brands. But what is the incentive to the bud tender? I mean, you have to be a keener in my mind to go, I want to learn about Carmel. I really want to know about Carmel. Carmel may not be the greatest example because they're on point with so many things, but new upcoming brand, we'll call it, Tom's Cannabis. And he's going to do something. He's going to do a PK session. What's in it for the bud tender? Because at the end of the day, the vast majority of bud tenders that make a minimum wage, in hopefully not all cases, but very many cases, it's thankless, right? They're in there, they're working long hours. Like, what is the incentive? How do you get bud tenders to attend and learn? It's the passion. But not all 7,000 of your members are passionate about everything.
No. So like we host digital PK sessions, like I said, once a week. On average, we get between like a good PK sesh, like a really good solid brand, we'll get 100 bud tenders out, over 100 bud tenders out virtually, and they'll stay on for an hour.
Wow.
Like we ran one with Collab Project last month that had 158 bud tenders, came out and stayed online for an hour. It was something like an average of like 118 unique stores, something like that.
Wow.
Came out and showed up and like spent the hour on the platform. There's a few, like I've got a few formulas that I think work to get them engaged. A lot of it is based on the community, is using the other members to hype each other up to get there, right. To get them engaged and make it an experience. But I can only speak to my members and like what we do. I often say to them, like, High Buds Club is a choose your own adventure. Like you don't have to participate in everything. Like participate in the things that speak to you, leave behind the things that don't, but we're here for you. And this is designed to like elevate your career. And so like we do these certifications and we give the members who complete them, like actual digital certificates with language for their like LinkedIn to add on to their and things to put on their resume so that they can move around in this industry and they can, showcase their knowledge and use their expertise to get a better job, go from a bud tender to a key holder to a manager to any of those things. But like I said before, it's about brand. You have to understand the core emotions and feelings and of your audience to be able to win with them and to be able to influence them.
Yeah. Well, that makes so much sense. Do you see support from, so bud tender, key, you just went through the different roles, but is there enough support from the retail side of it? So meaning the store owners, maybe it's a chain. Are they supporting the bud tenders to take that time to learn about the brands? Because it's only going to benefit them at the end of the day. Did you say no?
I mean,
no.
So here's the thing. I think some of the retail owners have lost the plot. I think they take these data deals and they're using it to keep the lights on in their store. They take the samples and they use it as incentives for their bud tenders to, like show up or sell or whatever.
Right.
And I think they think that the bud tender doesn't necessarily matter. I don't know that all do. I think some do.
Some are like that. Yeah, for sure.
And I think that like I said, the girls who get it, and the girls who don't. So like, I think there are certainly stores who support their employees and give them a budget every month to try new products and, or like a massive discount, an at cost discount, or like whatever it is to be able to like buy the products, try the products, all of those things. Absolutely. I think they are the exception and not the rule. There's inherent tension between the retailer and the bud tender because they're your boss. And so no matter what, it's not cool when Susan from HR tells you to do something. Never.
Right. Well, and that's what I wondered. Like certain retailers, they're like, you have to take this PK session. Oh, and by the way, do it tonight when you're not on working hours.
Well, so that's it. So anecdotally, I hear from my brand partners, like we paid X retailer, to do a PK sesh for their members or their employees or whatever. No one showed up. we had a screen of like blank faces, like no questions, no engagement. It's like they're being forced to do this. We've built a culture around learning and education, and there's an element of FOMO. You know, a lot of my brand is built on exclusivity, members only. If you know, you know. Like there's all of these elements to it that make it appealing for the budtenders to participate, and we're not their boss. And so because we're not their boss, they're open to it. It's the same way I say, we're not a sales rep. We're not trying to sell you something. All we're doing is giving you the information. We're presenting it to you. And I've built a bridge for brands to go across. So like that budtenders can get access to this information.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I like it that way. You know, I used to, in my younger days, it was, you have to do this training. You have to do this. We want you to do this. And I'm like, dude, I'm making fucking $12 an hour.
Literally.
Like, seriously? You want me to do what? You're out of your mind.
Literally.
Anyways, so what's next? First of all, I see a podcast in the future coming. We needed to talk about that. Can you unveil any information? That's exciting.
I'm stoked about it. So I'm filming my first episode next week, and like it feels kind of crazy. Like I can't lie. But like I'm pretty excited about it. I've got some really wonderful like innovators signed up to have like some great conversations with me. The goal of the podcast is really to tell stories and platform founders and visionaries who are influencing this industry. Like, how did you build this? Tell me about it.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's less about cannabis and more about like the founder stories and the grit and stick-to-itiveness of you know, getting to the other side of this and where things are going. But yeah, I'm just quietly building a little media empire over here, and I hope nobody notices.
Well, you've got our support. Do you have a name for it? Do you have a name for the podcast yet?
Of course, I have a name for it.
Can you share it with us?
Sure, I guess so. So it's called Pretty Blunt, and I think it's on brand.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah,
I like it. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
I know you'll have success with it. And you know, Wes and I've said this, like more voices, more opportunities. We need to share more stories. And it's funny because when we first talked, it was on our roadmap. We come from tech, right? So had to have a roadmap, set this up. Great. Get this going. Great. Legacies podcast, even though we hadn't named it at the time, was always on our roadmap. And we got some eye rolls. People are like, oh boy, another fucking podcast. And we're like, that's right. Another podcast. Who cares? There's room. There's plenty. We're at the infancy of an industry. You're telling me there isn't room? There's room from stoner grows all the way to executive summit type information and sharing. So there's room in between. And why not collaborate?
Of course. The one thing that I want to call out though is there's always room for valuable content. And I think that if you can produce something that is original, you know, that helps people, like that gives them something to like buy into or believe in, you know, maybe it gives them a business idea, helps them with a struggle, like whatever it is. When you add value to people's lives, they tune in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's incredible how much value you get back out of it as well. So selfishly, when we started, I'm like, I just get to sit for an hour, 2 hours a week with some really cool people and ask them the same questions I would ask them if I ran into them at an airport or a restaurant or something. We just happen to record it and put it out there. So I've always found that intriguing, but also the messages you get where something will go out and your audience, you know, they glean something from it and they'll reach out. And it's not to say, oh, we love this. It's more, hey, you asked this question. This was the response. What are your thoughts on something? And I'm like, well, fuck, I never even thought to think of it that way. I don't know. Let me go back to the drawing board here. So it's a two-way street, I find. And you'll find that it's just incredible. This industry is full of so many amazing people, yourself included. But anyways, we're going to wrap up here in a second. But what we've been doing lately, I don't even know how many episodes we've been doing this, Wes.
This is number 28.
28, but we didn't start it right away. So what we do is we have last week's guest pose a question to the incoming guest. They don't get to know who it is. And then you get to answer that. And then you pose a question to next week's guest. This week, I can't remember what it is, Wes. You always do it anyway.
So last week we had Chris Crosby on from Atlantic Cultivation. And his question for you was, what gets you out of bed in the morning and what keeps you motivated? It doesn't necessarily have to be industry specific, obviously, but what gets you out of bed in the morning and what keeps you motivated to keep going?
Yeah, so I'm really lucky that I happen to love what I get to do every day. So I think that is a very easy answer for me. It gets me out of bed in the morning. My team is a huge motivator for me. I am responsible for these people financially, but I do feel responsible to them to go and do what I do every day and make the engine run, right? When people work for you and align to your vision, they give you pay for it, but they give you their most valuable resource, which is their time. And so I think that it's really important for me that I'm thinking about them because I'm aware how much they're giving me. The other piece of what gets me out of bed every day is I'm my own boss. I don't have to answer to anybody. I don't have investors. I built this myself, with my own money. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's certainly a responsibility, like I said before, but I have so much freedom to be creative and do fun things. And then finally, the third thing, which we've touched on, is I've been talking a lot. I've been making a lot of noise on LinkedIn, and it's really fun to see sort of the reaction to just my thoughts, just the things that go through my head that get put out into the world. And so I feel in short, the thing that gets me out of bed every day is I'm pretty passionate about what I get to do. I like the majority of the elements of my job and the responsibility that I've given myself as the leader of the business. And it's pretty fun to know that everybody's watching.
Yeah. So very cool. You're a shit disturber at times. And I love it. I love it. But let me ask you a question.
I can get away with most things with a smile and
Yeah. I love some of it. I think one of the things that I love about some of your posts is just the comments, and they'll be just drastically against what you've said, and you're like, I value your opinion. That's interesting, right? It's some sort of response, and that's totally cool. But let me ask you a question, because there was a time, you're talking right now is really good, right? You're your own boss. You've got a team. Things are clicking along. There was a time that because I remember a post not from, or maybe we discussed it when we met, but you were like, I'm fucking done with this industry. Was it a year ago? Okay. And so what was the culmination of events that happened to come to that point where you're like, nope, I'm not doing this anymore?
Yeah. I had a team of people that I feel were more interested in a participation trophy than winning. And they didn't make my life easier. They made it harder. And so it got to the point where it's just demand after demand after demand. I'm paying them to be abused and not get the job done. And it just got too stressful for me. That was the truth. It stopped being fun for me. And
that is bad. Yeah.
I had this realization probably last May, June, I had this realization that if the business doesn't work for me anymore, I don't work for the business. It's really very simple. And from there, what happened was I took the summer off. I let go of my team, all of them, with the exception of one, who just to keep the lights on, keep campaigns going, keep, things happening. And I took a break. I took I called it, everyone laughed at me, but I called it my slow girl summer. I barely worked. I maybe worked an hour a day, nothing. I was a woman about town. I, was just like doing my thing, enjoying my life, and like, with no pressure. And I looked at the bank and I was like, okay, I have enough money with what's happened. I have enough money that I can float for the next like year, 2 years, like figure it out. And then one of my biggest clients dangled a giant campaign in front of me that I knew the margin on was going to be stupid good. And like I knew it was something that I could kill, like I could win at, like I knew it. And I was like, well, I need a team to do this. Like, okay. And so I hired a woman, Nancy Abdallah, who's amazing, who's my operator. And she just breathed life back into me. She really, like I saw, she really was very supportive, and like she's very good at what she does and has a polar opposite skill set from me. I am like a big picture thinker. And she's like down to the details. And we also just play very well together. Like we have a very good rapport with one another. There's a lot of respect there on both sides. And she was introduced to me by another entrepreneur friend of mine. And I told her I didn't need her. I was like, I just need somebody to like keep the lights on and like just like get this contract, and then I'm going to shut the business down. And she was like, okay, I don't really do that. Like, okay. And then she came back to me and said, listen, I think I can really help you. And I see what you're doing. I like your energy. Like, I think I can help you. And I was interviewing her and another person who had been in this industry, and they were both asking for the same money. And I was just like, I think she's it. Like, I think she can do it. And so she came on board. We're at about a year now. I looked the other day. I told her we had to go for dinner to celebrate her anniversary. And she just like rolled up her sleeves, no ego, and like got to work. And then she started asking me for people. And so she'd be like, we need this. And magically the right person would just like appear. And she said to me about the community. She was helping me manage the community. And she's like, we need a community person. This isn't like, it needs more.
I could just imagine so many individuals on the platform. Like,
well, right. And I was like, okay, let me think about it. Like, yes, I agree with you. This has been the hardest job for me to hire. I've had a rotating door of community managers that just have sucked. Like, okay, like, let me just figure this out. And then Sabine Schwartz, who works for me now, she's my head of community. She posted on LinkedIn that she was open for hire. And I remember vividly seeing her post and just like knowing in like my gut of guts. You are fucking perfect. You are perfect for what I need. And I sent her an email and, sort of outlined what I was looking for. Sabine is really, really incredible. She's so talented and so passionate, and like, I just think she's a star. I think she's like truly a star. And
we see all the work that she's doing out there. She's incredible.
She's incredible.
Yeah. And we hear nothing but great things about her as well.
Yeah, no, like, you'll see something from her soon on the High Buds Club channels. But I think Sabine is a star. I really do. And so I sent her a note. We got on a call, and very quickly it was like just clicked. It just clicked.
Yeah. And it's awesome when that happens.
Yeah. And so from there, Sabine's been with me since I think November. We've built a whole team. We've got a whole creative agency happening now, which is why we see the campaigns are getting better. They're getting bigger. They're more thought out. They're more engaged. And really, like, I think one of the things that gets me out of bed every morning is Sabine, to be quite honest with you. I really love working with her. I think she just has such great ideas. And she's somebody who really cares. She cares about the work. She cares about the buds. She cares about the community. And we've just got a really good thing going.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, I mean, that goes back to, one of the reasons you get out of bed. So, you already mentioned the team. We know that you've got a rock star team. But anyways, now you get to pose a question.
Oh.
That's pretty much the reaction we get every single time.
They may or may not be directly tied to the cannabis industry. You don't know, but it could be
They
any
ask
question.
2 questions.
Go ahead.
Sure.
So I would ask, if you could hire anyone in the industry, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow.
And then the follow-up to that question is, if you could fire anyone from the industry, who would it be and why?
Wow. It seems to me you've asked this question amongst circles before. It must be because that's a good one. Who in this industry would you fire? Can I give you an answer from 5 years ago? And I'm just kidding. I'm not going there. There's so many answers.
I don't have to answer the question.
No, you don't have to answer the question.
Nice.
No, of course not. Wow. That's a powerful fucking question, Jamie. Seriously. We'll make sure we'll send you a clip of that just so you're in the know of where it came from, because we know how busy you are. It's tough to get through these episodes. But anyways, we could talk to you for hours. We know you're busy as hell. But we thank you very much for coming on Legacies, and good luck. I see an episode title here, but I don't know if we can use it. I'll send a follow-up and see. But I like it. Anyways, thanks for joining Legacies. It's been awesome having you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a great chat.
Of course. Welcome back anytime we can fit you in.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Jamie. Have a great day.
You too.
Well, Wes, I got one word of advice for you. Don't fuck with Jamie. She's got an army of 7,000 Budtenders behind her.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? No kidding.
She's awesome. I loved hearing that. The first time we heard the story, I'm like, wow. I love those fucking eureka moments where it's like, oh, hold on. I've had a lot of them, but not all of them were great eureka moments. We've worked together long enough that you know that.
Yeah, my eureka moment was, fuck this. I'm not working for this company anymore. I'm
Fuck this.
On a cruise ship.
Yeah. And
that was it.
Sometimes it just takes a matter of getting to wit's end and going, I just need to make a decision. But those light bulb moments, you and I've shared multiple across, our time working together where, oh, fuck, if we do this, we can solve this. We can do this.
One light bulb eureka moment that's about to come to fruition very soon.
I wonder if any of our audience, anyone tuning in or watching or listens to us goes, what the fuck are those two fuckers up to? You'll know soon enough.
Some know.
Some know.
Indeed.
Anyways. Yeah. All right. Well, great episode. We had Darwin and Jamie on. Looking forward to getting up and moving, maybe a little food. These studio days are long days, man.
Oh, you're lucky. I get to post-produce now. So,
you go eat something first, please.
Maybe I'll eat. I'll eat maybe around 10 o'clock. I don't know. We'll see.
What an asshole I am. Don't worry. It's going to take me 10 hours to get up and away from my desk today.
Yeah.
Muscle relaxers. But I made it. Hey, I made it. My head wasn't so cloudy.
Yeah.
Man, if I can do this on muscle relaxers, imagine what I can accomplish without them. Anyways, well, been a great episode. We appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll see you next time on Legacies.